Hi, I'm Brittany Pacheco,
And I'm Amber Churchwell.
and we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome back to our channel. So happy to have y'all join us for this incredible penultimate episode for season 5 of The Handmaid's Tale entitled Allegiance. Amber, what were your thoughts about this episode?
Blown away. I was like completely amazed by it. They're getting better and better. And I'm
Yes.
so excited for next week and the finale. I mean, I am like so excited and so interested in all of these characters and how the plot is just advancing and where it's going. I'm so interested in it. And there's a lot to dissect here.
Yes, and I think this episode, maybe because it was directed by Bradley Whitford, aka Joseph Lawrence,
Yes.
there's something about that and it being the penultimate. Okay, huge Game of Thrones fans up until season
Yes.
8 because season 8 was terrible. But Game of Thrones always had like great episode 9s, great penultimate episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this held up to that status of great episode 9s in a season, because like you just said, I mean, there's a lot to unpack, of course.
Yeah.
But damn, what happened with Serena, and that's not even the conclusion of this episode, of course, but that left me just like, oh my,
There was so many. I had my hands over my mouth, just in shock most of the time. Like it was riveting. I was so invested in it, and I decided that I really like his directing. Like when you told me that he
Yes.
directed the episode, I was just like, well, that makes sense. Because I was about you sent me that when I was about midway through the episode, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense now. And
Yeah.
you can see it. It's great.
It's just
And you're
so
right. Yeah.
extremely well done.
There was
Like,
just so much that's happening.
yeah,
Where would you like to
indeed.
start?
Let's just start from the very beginning, because the way
Okay.
that, we left it off was about the news. Mark Twello and his people they located Hannah, the wife prep school in Colorado, and they were going to go and get her. Right. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this episode really, it's heavily focused on June, naturally, but we pick up immediately from where episode 8 ended. And we see that June, Luke, and Mark are together. They're meeting the commander who's going to kind of head up this mission, this rescue mission. Yeah. And it's one of these things where you meet someone and he has a few lines and he's like, yeah, like I get where you're coming from. Like, I too have a daughter, and like my goal is to, bring your daughter along with the 30 other girls that had been kidnapped back home safe. But it's also for me to get home to my daughter. Yeah. And I was like, he's gonna die.
Oh yeah, it was instantly just like how that the fear with the child guardian that we saw earlier in the season, when like this, I feel like, oh, I like you, I hope nothing terrible happens to you. And it was the exact same feeling. And yeah. He also, that actor that plays that commander, he's gorgeous. But
oh my god, yes,
the eyes, oh wow, he's gorgeous. So side note, he's gorgeous and I fell in love with him. And you're right, I had the same sense of dread. I'm like, oh, he ain't gonna make it, and that's sad. Because they wouldn't have given us that little nugget of feeling for him if he was gonna be, everything was gonna be fine. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, his demise was looming, and the whole encounter, of course, it makes June and Luke feel good, because this is like, it's like a personal mission for this commander, but it's not, obviously, because his daughter's not directly involved. But when Mark says, okay, well, I'll be watching the live feed from the command room, and June's like, oh yeah, we are too. And he's like, no, I can't authorize that. She's like, listen. You wouldn't have that information if it wasn't for me.
Which, I mean, again, she did that last episode too, kind of very like demanding of I did this for you, did this for me kind of thing. And I get it, but
Mm-hmm.
here it felt a lot more natural. Before it felt more like a petulant child kind of thing. Here it felt actually very natural. Like I was just like, oh yeah, it's the least you can do, Mark. Come on.
Well,
And yeah.
right, especially when he tries to say, well, like none of the other family members are gonna take part in watching, and she's like, well,
Mhm.
none of the other family members have done what I've done.
True.
Mic drop.
Yeah, which is right, correct. And we don't know how many of those families were in Gilead at all and just
Right.
escaped. We don't like we she really went through it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like the excitement. Everyone was so excited, and like they started off by like they couldn't sleep at that night. None of them could because they were just so excited, I guess, and anxious about this going well, and they felt fairly confident that it was going to work out in their favor.
Yeah,
Which
for
makes it
sure.
very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like it's way too good to be true, and this furthers my thought about how this season and what I'm assuming will be season 6 is going to set up for the storyline for the Testaments. I'm hoping that that's actually going to, come into play in the near future, just
Yeah,
because of, like I said, the way things are playing out.
I
However,
do too.
during the live feed of this rescue mission, we do see a glimpse inside Hannah's life at this Colorado-based wife prep
Yes,
school.
I loved it. I loved getting this glimpse of what Hannah slash Agnes has to deal with, and because we don't really get that,
Mm-hmm.
so I really liked this
Well,
that whole introduction.
tell us about what we watched.
Yeah, we see the Plums in their wives' school, and they are getting ready for the night. They say a good night prayer. Yes, they give a prayer, led by an aunt, and the aunt stays there and I guess watches them. Like they all sleep. It's very similar to the Handmaids, how they were at the Red Center.
Oh yeah.
Um, Obviously, they have nicer beds with their little like canopies and stuff like that, which was really pretty. But it really reminded me of how the Handmaids are at the Red Center,
Mm-hmm.
like the sleeping situation. Um, but all of the plums, like I made, they're separated by age or class or who knows how they're separated.
Mm-hmm.
But they they all go to sleep, and instead of going to sleep, Hannah starts off by saying another prayer
Mm-hmm.
that she keeps to herself, in an internal prayer,
Mm-hmm.
and she gets out a picture book because in Gilead, women aren't allowed to read. So it's a picture book, visuals only.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, she has hidden a drawing of beautiful flowers. Very good drawing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that she has done. And she gets out a pencil, making sure she's not being watched several times. And she writes her name as Hannah instead of Agnes. And I love it because it just shows that how similar she is to June. Like she is June's daughter, and it's a small rebellion, but it's a rebellion, and it is a stand towards something. Because if that's writing her name, and
Yeah.
the wrong name. It's like there's so many offenses to Gilead's, I guess, belief system that she just does just by that, but she's still willing to do it even though she's a child.
Exactly. And you said it just so well with the rebellious act of this. One, she's writing. Two,
Mm-hmm.
she's writing her before name,
Mm-hmm.
and to me that also brings into this notion of Hannah really does remember who she is and her life
Yeah.
before Gilead, and by extension remembers June and hopefully Luke. Obviously, she was very little when all this went down, but we know she's seen June a couple of times while in Gilead.
Mm-hmm.
Once before June gave birth to Nicole, and then once after when June attempted to escape and was brought back. And in
Yeah.
order to break June's spirit to give up the whereabouts of the other handmaids, they brought in Hannah in this, kind of glass casing. And Hannah was scared. Hannah was scared to see
Yes.
her mother. And who knows, of course, what was fed into her to make her fear her own mother. But
Mm-hmm.
this simple, small, rebellious act of writing her name and smiling about it makes me wonder if she still has that desire to see her mother again and be with her family from before.
Yeah, I really think she does. I think I you have to know that she wasn't just an item during all of those interactions with June in the past. She was her own person, so she has to, whether she how much she remembers it in general, she still remembers it. And she if she's able to remember her name and able to remember June, then that's just a lot of memories that's going through her. So she remembers those interactions, and she might remember what June had told her like before, and she how much of her time since in these 7-8 years has been her thinking about her parents, thinking about her life before, trying so hard to like cling on to that and remember it, because that's what I felt like it was. I feel like this scene was showing that she's still clinging to that. And I feel like it was a little bit of a relief for me because of how frightened she was the most recent time that she saw June.
Right.
So I was a little relieved by this, but yeah, she has to be clinging on to something. And whether it's, we don't know to what extent and how far that goes, but she's clinging to something.
Yeah, for sure. And it's making me think now to other parts of this scene, also the ending of episode 8 with Hannah in the garden doing the wife duty of having a hobby of gardening, I guess. But she's looking up at the sky, and it's almost like you hear the planes flying by, right? And you kind of think, oh, wow, the raid's happening at that moment, but it wasn't. But she's, looking up at the sky to, I don't know, for whatever reason, we don't know. Obviously, we're not inside Hannah's head at this point, but she's also listening as she's praying in her little tent thing and really just listening out for what's happening outside of her bubble and just being very cautious. And to me, that's just very June-like.
Yeah, she's very aware of everything.
Aware of her surroundings and seeing just how much further can she push that envelope, right? And I wonder, just in terms of her upbringing, even with the Mackenzies, like, does she have those little secret moments to herself, like what she's doing at this prep school? So it was a very nice way to see inside Hannah's life, and for her to be around the other little girls. However, the trio of aircrafts, unfortunately, will not succeed in their mission, because once they cross into Gilead borders, they completely lose contact with the command center, just like immediately. So, like sirens, alarms are going off, and Luke and June are escorted out of the room. And afterwards, Mark is going to follow up with them to basically say, okay, hey, first off, Hannah and the other girls are safe. However, the mission was a complete failure. There are no survivors from the aircrafts. And that's devastating. Like,
it
really is.
Gut-wrenching. Because a specialist team of very brave people went to do this. And it's a valiant mission. And it was what 30 girls? Yeah, 30 girls that they were from stolen families that they were trying to return. And it's devastating to see a noble, heroic act literally shot down. Like, it was heartbreaking. And both Luke and June obviously feel terrible too, but then ultimately they don't get Hannah.
They don't. And the commander that we met in the beginning of the episode, who said, listen, I'm going to bring back your daughter and I'm going to go home to mine, unfortunately will never get home to his daughter, which was just like, whoa, gut wrenching, just like you said. And we fast forward to what we can assume is the next day that, and see, and now I'm pretty sure Lawrence was the one who fed that information, either solely with the video of Hannah at the school, but maybe by extension, that USB drive that young Gilead soldier had as well. Not sure. I'm just stretching at this point. But Lawrence makes it a point to, yeah, right. But Lawrence makes it a point to call June because remember, she still has the cell phone, one-way call to him. And while he's mad, I guess you could say that she sided with the Americans, he's still like, hey, New Bethlehem is still open to you if you want to come and move your family. And she's like, the fuck are you saying?
Yeah. Like, I was a little shocked that he still tried to push that bruise after what just happened. Like, in the past, we see him be a lot more, I guess, well-spoken. So for him to, like, read the room, guy, come on. Like, why would you think that she would say yes to New Bethlehem now just because you blew up 3 planes in front of her and however many people just died because of you? And even more so if, and probably him being the one that sent that information. Because that was the wrong information. So he led them to that death. So it's like whether she realizes that it was probably him or not, read the room, bitch. It's not a good time. Like, it was not a good time for him to bring that up.
I mean, in fairness, he leads off the conversation with, hey, June, listen, I did not want this bloodshed. I absolutely did not want this to happen. But in other news, you still can come to New Bethlehem. It's like, dude, yeah, it's awful. It's awful how, but prior to all this, he was far more calculated. It was almost more sinister-like, if you will. And I worry that I worry that Lawrence is kind of losing a little bit of grip, right? He's starting to become a little careless and not as calculated as prior to other events. But his whole dangling line here is, hey, you come to New Bethlehem, you're gonna be neighbors with Nick. And June calls him out on it. She's like, you think that you can dangle Nick in front of me and I'll do whatever the fuck you want me to do? Like, no, that's not how this works. Like, this is just no. And with Lawrence, like, tell me how you felt about this, with Lawrence saying to June, hey, before you do come to New Bethlehem, because he's trying to drive that home, right? She's actively saying, no, I'm not doing this. But he's like, nope, you're going to do this.
Saying, like, we will do it, not like, or when you do it, not if you do it.
Right. Yeah. But he says to June, hey, before you come over here, I need you to go public and ally yourself with Gilead and basically outright denounce this rescue attempt on America's part. That it was like a known failure. You don't support it. Tell me what you thought about him saying that to her.
The sheer audacity. I mean, what did you expect her to say, man? I mean, come on. This is the most rebellious anti-Gilead person on the planet.
Yeah.
Come on, she's fairly the utmost person against Gilead. And you want her to publicly side with Gilead? Like, what did you think was going to happen? And the audacity to be like, when you come here, hey, before you get here, you got to do this. Like, yeah, I'm dangling Nick and I'm dangling Hannah in front of you. I did just, lead to the slaughter of hundreds of people, but whatever.
Yeah.
I need you to say that was all for nothing and that they were wasting their time. Like that.
Yeah.
The audacity of this bitch.
It's like you said, read the room, bro. Like, this is not the time and place to ever ask that kind of anything from June. And she will refuse, obviously. And she actually doubles down on it. You finally unleash the beast
Yes.
Well, more so the beast that is June Osborne. But she finally tells him.
He released Offred.
He released Offred. That's fair. Because he says that, listen, like, I'm still trying to do right by Eleanor. And that's when June just, like, takes the opportunity to sweep the leg, just strike him where it hurts. And she tells Lawrence, hey, your late wife, Eleanor, hated you. She hated what you became and hated what you did. And furthermore, Lawrence, I watched your wife die and didn't do anything to stop her. And you can see that moment where Lawrence is just broken.
Yeah, it hurt. And it hurt to hear and it hurt to watch. And she's not wrong.
No.
But it hurts so bad. And I think you're right. I think that he was sort of losing grip. Things were kind of getting a little out of his control. And instead of maybe being 10 steps ahead of everybody, he's like 6 steps ahead. Like, it's, I feel like he's definitely losing the reins a little bit. And as devastating as that was for him to hear, I think he needed to hear it.
Yeah, and he says it back to her. He's like, I knew you had something to do with it. Which it made me think back to the season when Eleanor, or the episode when Eleanor died, and the two of them are at her gravesite and not saying anything to one another. But he looks over to June, and she's wearing the wings, as they called it, and she can't see him, but he's looking at her, and he has like this real hateful look on his face. It's like, it didn't hit me until obviously this moment where he said, I knew you had something to do with it. It's like, oh, okay, well, that explains the look of, I hate this bitch, but I can't prove that she had anything to do with it. Not that he needed to prove anything, right? He's a commander. He can say whatever the fuck he wants because Handmaid is his property. So it now, like, came full circle. It makes perfect sense at this given moment.
It just gave him the confirmation for that closure, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the closure for June is that she tells him to F off, slams the phone down, loses her mind, starts ripping up her garden, has to be stopped by Luke. But she's done. She's done with Lawrence and Gilead, for sure.
Yeah, he really done messed up.
Yeah, it's like what we say here in the South, you done fucked up.
Yeah, you done fucked up, yeah. It was I mean, he's gotten away with a lot of shit. Like, just go through his track record throughout the entire series ever since he came up in the series. Like, he's gotten away with so much because he's so good at playing the game. And now we're finally starting to see that, hey, you can't always win. And this is a very vital thing. And because of your actions, you fucked it all up, really.
Exactly.
And
it's glorious.
I felt like it was when he found out that June had the connect, like, maybe I guess to give Lawrence the benefit of the doubt, like, maybe this was like his last pitch, like, scrambled effort to try and pull her back on his side once he found out that she was involved with the Americans.
Right.
Because he didn't know that she was really that involved, maybe, with the Americans. And so once he found out that she was, instead of taking his offer, like, kind of scrambling to, like, no, come back here.
Yeah.
Like, instead of, he didn't have time to plan because there was no time. So give him the benefit of that, but still, dude, read the room.
Yeah, no, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
He needed to hear it, but I mean,
yeah, I mean, she needed to knock him down a couple pegs, and I think she succeeded in that endeavor. But as I said, she's done with Lawrence. She's done with Gilead. She's ready to fight alongside the Americans. And of course, she goes to our boy Mark Twillow. She's like, all right, let's go. Like, what's next? What do we do now? We got to make a new plan. We got to see, what we can do. And so Twillow suggests Nick, hey, can you get in touch with Nick and see if maybe he will reconsider my offer? And she's like, well, what offer? She knew nothing of this offer. And we've talked about this before, Amber, where, Nick has been given an option by Twillow to kind of spy for him.
It was a very good option too. Like, it was good deal.
Good deal. Yeah, especially considering Nick's new status as a commander now, right? He's got intel, he's got some pull, if you will. And for June to hear that her second baby daddy refused the offer, very much concerns her. It makes her question, like, why the fuck would you not take up that offer? Like, what do you expect? And so naturally, I love how they can just like secretly have their little meetings and like no one turns up. Like no one turns up, right? Not Gilead, not the Americans to come take away Nick. No one. It's just crazy to me how like this happens.
Like, they keep getting to have their meetings, which are very cute, and obviously we would all be devastated if anything got, ripped apart or whatever. But it is kind of funny that it's like there are people who still haven't seen their families in like 8 years, and you guys get to see each other whenever, like, just willy-nilly whenever the fuck you want.
Basically. Also, where are they meeting? Is it still was it that same house that they met once before? Is it no man's land? Like, how is this happening? Okay. It kind of looked like it.
Yeah, it kind of looked similar, like it was the same house. And
hard to tell without the snow.
I'm assuming that house is in no man's land. Like, it has to be.
Maybe.
Like, because I don't think she would just, saunter up to Gilead anytime soon.
True.
And I don't, and Nick, as a commander now especially, is not very openly welcome in Canada. So
I mean, I guess in this sense it's to his benefit that he's not such a high up commander that he has a driver. He still has to drive himself, so it's like, cool. He can do whatever he wants.
Honestly though, I'm really surprised at that. I figure he would have a driver. Maybe he just doesn't use them. Because I mean, you don't have to use your driver, because he did other things. He didn't just drive people. He did when he was a driver for the Waterfords, he did other things too. He wasn't just the driver. But that also kind of makes me start thinking about maybe drivers aren't as typical as we thought, and the only reason the Waterfords had a driver was because that was an excuse to get an eye in their house.
Perhaps that's a definitely good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So
like that's what kind of, when he said that, I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
Is it typical to have a driver and you just don't have one? Or I don't know.
Considering too that his pregnant wife is a daughter of a high commander. So you think that there'd be a little bit more,
and she's pregnant.
Right, privilege, leverage, whatever you call it.
Yeah, because I mean, having a wife that has a child, who can have children and has a child, that raises your status already in Gilead. So
we'll talk about that in a little bit, but
yeah,
it doesn't work out for everyone. But so when June does confront Nick about why he didn't take up the offer, he basically says it's because of my wife. Like, she is pregnant, by the way. And she's happy in Gilead. Her father's a high commander, like I already mentioned. And he's also helping Lawrence make Gilead into what they think is a better place. And
who is this guy? What, like, why haven't we met him?
This grooming bit is now very concerning, because the more and more I think about it, especially with the look ahead, and we will talk about the look ahead at the end of this episode, I'm very concerned about what Nick may do should he stay in Gilead as a commander. I'm genuinely very concerned about.
I am too.
His well-being, and then even Lawrence's well-being. Like, Lawrence is a bad guy. Let's not misunderstand. he's the bad guy in all this. He's the architect of Gilead.
Yeah, there's a lot of horrible people in this show. So
yeah,
I mean
he's trying to do right. He does try to do right, but for the most part, like he's just a bad person. But yeah, like I'm very concerned about Lawrence and Nick and how their partnership is going. Non-sexual, by the way.
The non-sexual grooming.
Non-sexual grooming, exactly. What still floors me is that they still like love each other, Nick and June. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just both openly admitted that, you both have your own people and you're trying to do right by them and what have you. By the way, shout out to McDorks here in the chat. Love you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Still haven't watched Handmaid's Tale, but liked her, referring to Elisabeth Moss in the Invisible Man. I haven't watched it. I need to check it out.
Love that movie.
Ooh.
Great movie.
Okay. But you're
I
into
really
the scary type movies, so like that's your jam.
Yeah. And it's technically it's a universal monster. So the Invisible Man counts as a universal monster. So
okay, scary. Okay.
It's maybe. Not scary.
We'll see.
It's more of a thriller.
By your definition. I'm a weenie. Anyway, back to the Handmaid's Tale. You're right. Like I said, Nick and June, they still love each other, even though they've got other people. Nick tells June, hey, can you tell Nicole I love her? I miss her. I think about her always. And it's just like, oh my God.
I know. I was just, ouch, my heart. And when he's like, him saying he loves her and she saying he loves him, I'm just,
it's like bawling boogers, it's just like, it's so sweet.
And I mean, you're right. They did just talk about, hey, we have 2 countries, 2 families. He has a wife and a kid on the way. She already has another kid, but even though she's not with Hannah, and a husband, and like, hey, we have our basically 2 separate lives, completely separate from each other, but hey, I still do love you.
Yeah.
It's wrong place, wrong time, wrong lifetime.
Yeah, basically. Amber, tell us about the advice that June says to Nick upon their departure.
I mean, well, give me a second to find it because I did not have my page up.
How dare you? No, she leaves him with some solid advice about how children look to their fathers.
Oh yeah. Thank you for reminding me. I was so caught up in the I love yous that my brain didn't even compute. I was just a sad little mushy mush. But yeah, so she does make that comment. Like you said, she does say before he leaves, she calls him and says that children look up to their fathers. Mm-hmm. And that does sound very good advice, especially in Gilead, because especially that he's going to be a father again, and he's actually going to be around, hopefully, for this child, like, because this is going to be a child of Gilead now, and that child is going to grow up looking at him and watching him and following him, boy or girl. It's definitely going to be impacted, and his decisions and actions are going to impact that child. So it's definitely something for her to highlight and him to focus on.
Exactly. And the idea, especially because Nick hasn't been able to be a father to Nicole, like when they were, I say they, but when June was kind of giving Nick that ultimatum about like, hey, this is your one chance to be a dad. This is your one chance to do right by your child. Like, make that decision. And it's kind of reiterating that previous statement of children look to their fathers, teach them right, teach them well. And that's up for interpretation. Nick obviously believes in Gilead. He believes it can be a better place. Mm-hmm. I am for sure certain that he has, at this present time, has no desire to come over to the dark side that is America. And
I don't think he's gonna defect Gilead.
I don't think he'll defect either. Yeah,
he's in deep,
literal deepness,
and he really doesn't seem to mind it. He just
No.
needs to want it. So
Yep. I see it. I like it. I want it. I got it. Sorry. Had to have my Ariana.
Now I'm gonna hear that every time I see him, and I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna hear it in your voice too.
Oh. I'll make you
playlist.
A playlist. That's hilarious.
A Nick playlist.
Oh gosh. So fast forward to the end of this episode. Mm-hmm. The Americans in Little America in Toronto are holding a memorial for the fallen soldiers of this unfortunately failed mission attempt. And you can hear and see protesters behind the gathering. And I mean, they're yelling out obscenities. They've got, really awful signs, basically telling the Americans to F off and, go home, that kind of thing. Again, what is home for America, people? Just curious.
And you could barely hear the service, and because of the memorial service, like in the names being read, you could barely hear because of the shouting. And
exactly,
like these people are like just went through a very, very devastating loss and a lost chance for those who like that the mission was designed for, to save girls like in those families. So it's such an upsetting moment, and it's just so disrespectful for them to do that. Like, I get you're angry and I understand that you're mad, but like that is shows how angry and frustrated they are by that they don't care even about that you suffered this loss. We're still going to talk about this.
It's very classless. I mean, it's just really unfortunate, of course, that that's what's happening in Toronto. And what makes it even more hurtful is the commander that we met in the beginning of the episode. His family's there, his wife and his daughter. And Twello calls on the daughter to come up to the memorial, to the podium, if you will. And she begins to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, whether she struggles because she looked at the photo of her dad and, makes her emotional, or she struggles because of the protesters behind her, or she struggles for whatever reason, June asks the mother if she could go and help the little girl, and she will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The little girl follows, and then eventually the gatherers of the memorial will recite it. But before they can finish the Pledge of Allegiance, shots are fired.
And it's literally on the last word. It's like the last words.
Yeah. I was not expecting this at all, Amber. Like what did you think?
It hit me in the face. I was like, my heart sped up because for a second, I thought that they did hit the girl. And like that was an instantaneous thought that came through my head. Worst case scenario, the little girl got hit. And I was going to be enraged. And I'm still enraged. Like, that is messed up. But do we think it was Gilead, or do we think it was the Canadians?
I think it's the Canadians, because again, Americans have been in Canada for quite some time at this point.
Yeah, but I was thinking like more because of like Lawrence. I can't remember if it was in the thing for the finale, or if it was talked about at the end of the episode, but where Lawrence says that she needs to be dealt with, that she's like, I think it was like that kind of wording, and then seeing like the glimpses in that teaser for next week, that like of Nick being visibly angry and stuff like that. Like, part of me thinks it might have been Gilead, or the Gilead people in Canada.
It's possible, now that you're putting it in that light. It could even be Wheeler's people, because remember, that's how June and Luke got caught in no man's land. It wasn't Gilead per se.
Yeah.
It was Wheeler's people. And
The weird ass Gilead people in Canada. Like, just go
exactly.
to Gilead. Why are you here?
Just go. Don't wait for it to come here. Go. But yeah, no, it's I wonder that too. I wonder who could have fired those shots, and if it's just Canadian protesters or Gilead sympathizers or Gilead itself. Yeah, there's so much unknown, and the powerful image of seeing the bullets pierce the flag, and June and the little girl in this particular scene are the only two that are not covering. They're not on the ground, trying to cover themselves. And June, as I think any decent human being and any mother for that matter, instinctively will go and protect the child. And so she kind of protectively, I call it protectively, embraces the child, and they throw themselves on the ground, and hopefully neither one of them have been shot. It was a little unclear with that last bullet, in my opinion. But
I think it was more to show that is where they were standing, so that if they didn't hit the ground, they would have been hit.
Yeah,
that is how I took those because there wasn't just like there was like 6 different bullets. Like, it was multiple shots.
Yeah.
It was, and all through the flag and all through the center. And do we know what direction it was coming from? Is it going towards the crowd behind them, or is it coming from the angry mob behind them? Like, does that make sense?
That's a really good question. I want to say it was coming maybe from behind the flag.
That's what I was thinking. And so is the crowd behind them okay? Like Luke and the mom? Or
I mean, I think everyone ducked for cover, hopefully, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say the direction that the shots were coming from. But
figure it out.
We're gonna go back and rewatch the episode and look at the holes of the flag and be like,
I am going to. I'm gonna rewatch that last little clip and just be like, pay real close attention to that flag. Which direction do you move?
Exactly. So let's talk about Gilead for a little bit, because although we don't focus a whole heck of a lot inside Gilead, there's a lot that's actually going on in Gilead. Some big major moves, particularly for Commander Lawrence. And we start off with, good God, we start off with him and Aunt Lydia at his house, and they've invited the recently widowed Naomi Putnam to have a chat. A really awkward chat, for that matter.
It was good. So uncomfortable. I think he deserved it at this point, but I mean, it was so uncomfortable. He was so uncomfortable. Like, it just made it all worse. Yeah, if you could have been like a little bit more chill, it wouldn't have been so painstakingly uncomfortable.
Oh boy.
But Naomi's like, think she's gonna die or go to the colonies. She is
right.
She is scared.
She is. I mean, yeah, exactly. Rightfully so. And because we obviously know what's happening with Serena being a widow and having a child. And so the idea of maybe that could be Naomi's fate, or for her to go to the colonies. It's like, would Gilead take away her child and send her off? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many unknowns. So I understand her way of thinking entirely.
Completely, yeah.
But I don't think she at all was expecting an awkward ass marriage proposal of,
so
hey,
weird.
It's like, hey, you need a place. I need to elevate my status here in Gilead and do Gilead. I got a Gilead, like Gilead's gonna Gilead. Let's help each other out. Like, you and the kid can move in here. And she's like, this is a marriage proposal?
It was so weird because he never even like directly said it either. None of this like, hey, like, just be upfront, dude. Say, will you, like, hey, this is the reasoning. You and I should get married. This is the reasoning. Think about it.
Eleanor, what did you see in this man?
Who knows? Honestly.
Answer from beyond the grave, please.
Yeah, I mean, he used to make like like, you know, cassette tapes for her and stuff
Oh,
like
that's right,
that.
he
So
did
maybe
do
he just
that.
was like a sweet little nerd this whole time and then just got extremely fucked up along the way.
That's what happens when you write esocentric books, I suppose, but yeah.
That or just
Um,
what happens to men.
well, that too. Yeah, no, it's like the weirdest proposal of life. I don't think anyone is gonna top that, like Gilead or non-Gilead alike. And now
So
Naomi's faced with this, okay, well, like, do I like I have a choice though. Like I don't have to marry him. I can say no if I don't want to. And,
yeah.
and Aunt Lydia kind of illustrates, Corinthians, a verse from Corinthians
Who
saying
doesn't love
that,
Corinthians?
especially First Corinthians. Jeez, I tell you, Bradley Whitford he's just a gem to
He
us
is the
all.
entire reason I love Lawrence as a character.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
even though he does such horrible, horrible shit,
Yeah.
I love him because
Yeah.
of moments like these. Just, who doesn't love Corinthians?
Yeah. Oh my
Just,
god.
just shut up,
J
dude.
just the awkwardness of, like, he even offering her tea, and she's like, "Oh, no, thank you, but please help yourselves if you'd like," and he goes, "I don't like tea." It's just oh,
Their
he's great.
living interactions are gonna be so comical to me.
Oh, they're
I'm
gonna be in separate
so
rooms. That's without a doubt,
oh,
like,
of course. No, but I meant like
yeah.
in the same house
Yeah, that's true.
in general. Like they're gonna have
That's
to
true.
interact and it's gonna be weird.
Well, we're not done talking about them just yet, so
I know.
so with Naomi having this marriage proposal, right? She makes it known to Lydia. She's like, "This is the man who ordered the execution of my husband." And on Lydia's like, "Yeah, and he's willing to overlook that." I'm like, "Jesus. Are you serious?" Like we're
I
being
kind
for
of
real.
I shouldn't have laughed at it, but I did. I so, like that's not the point, Lydia. Like that is
Mm,
I felt for Naomi at that because I'm just like that was not what she meant, Lydia. What the
right.
fuck?
The
And
alternative the alternative for her though is probably pretty grim if she
yeah,
doesn't accept the proposal.
yeah, like you have a choice, but do you?
No, not really.
Because we we don't know what would actually happen. Like if if Serena just wasn't a basket case and sorry, shouldn't have said that when you were drinking.
You're fine.
Um, if Serena wasn't a basket case and absolutely cuckoo choo, how would that have gone? Like after Waterford died, would she have been accepted in Gilead? Like would her and eventually Noah be totally fine? Like where or was she because I'm assuming that she would have been pressured to marry again, just like um the Wheelers were pushing
Right.
her to do, and then
Well,
obviously like what's happening to Naomi.
she was
But
kind of anticipating it when she came back to Gilead, and she thought Lawrence was gonna be her knight in shining armor, and he's like, "Yeah, do you expect anything from me?" She's like, "No. Whatever made you
that
think
was
that?"
so weird too. This man just has like you
Is
you can tell that that Eleanor took initiative throughout the entire relationship.
oh yeah.
You can
Yeah, like
tell because this
he
man had no idea what was going on.
yeah, poor thing. And that's probably what drove her nuts. Not trying
Probably.
to be, crass or anything, but like that's probably what did it, not gonna lie.
True,
So,
true, true.
like I said, Naomi's left with the decision, and it seems like that decision has been made on a different day. We're back at the Lawrence's house. The commanders and the wives are celebrating Gilead's victory against the Americans, and in attendance are the Blaines, the Mackenzies, some other wife I don't recall seeing before, and of
Neither.
course,
I was
the
I was
Lawrences.
actually gonna ask you if you recognized her because I
Mm-mm.
was like, who you?
No, and her comment because as I said, the Blaines are there. So Rose, Nick's pregnant wife, is there, and of course the wives are gushing about how she's just glowing and what a blessing to have a baby, and then that one unknown wife is like, well, gotta be careful because genetics and like you walk with a cane and like I was
Yeah,
like,
that was
read the room. No, don't talk about that. Don't talk. Just don't
yeah.
talk.
Shut the fuck up. Like, get out of
Exactly.
here.
Yeah.
It was uncalled for. She needs to leave.
Very much. Well, she's just mad, obviously. She's mad that like a wife is pregnant
Jelly.
and yeah, and she can't or hasn't. But Rose takes it in stride and she's like, well, we'll leave that in the Lord's hands. Case closed, right?
Good
Who's going to
answer for
challenge that?
Gilead.
There you go. And in the other room, because again, this is Gilead. The wives meet in one room, the commanders meet in the other room, and they're talking about, this is a victory that so many other countries have recognized. North Korea, Russia, China, like all these, communist countries. And it's like, cool, those are your allies.
Yeah,
Good
playing
for
with the big
you.
boys now.
Oh, yeah. And I liked what Lawrence said in that moment about any club that will have me, basically. And I'm like, damn. Like, we're just keeping it 100 at all times. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just great.
This household, what happens in this house that just makes everybody just go off constantly?
If Angela Charlotte, I'm gonna call her Angela Charlotte.
Yeah.
If she's got anything like her mother, if she is anything like her mother, and then she's gonna grow up with the
oh god
realness that is Lawrence, this is a woman to be reckoned with. Like, don't
praise be.
This, like, don't fuck with this child, okay? Also, she's a redhead, soulless creature. Just kidding. I love my redheads.
Oh, it's gonna be a treat. I hadn't even considered Angela Charlotte. You're right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be great.
Oh, that's gonna be interesting. I'm so excited now.
I know.
And also she's gonna start talking and he curses fairly often. Man. Oh god.
Oh well, her mama does too, so we good. But but after the talk,
forget about Naomi. But she's not on screen. I kind of forget she exists.
Yeah. That's fair enough. While conversations about their victories and their allies is going on, Commander Mackenzie, puts his sights back on June and basically says she needs to be dealt with. We need to do something about it. And Lawrence kind of like, we'll consider it. We'll look into it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they go and join the wives, and Naomi is sitting at what I consider the head of the room. She's in this armchair, and she kind of has a stare off with Lawrence, and it's kind of like, I'm not moving. And he
good for her,
right? He awkwardly praise be. He awkwardly places himself next to her, like standing, of course.
Yeah.
And so he's on her right, and like very abruptly and just awkwardly places his left hand on her shoulder.
That's so weird.
Which was very unwelcomed. Let's just be real.
Oh yeah, she was not for it.
No, but he's now
neither wearing, are we.
But he's wearing this wedding band on his finger, which I don't remember seeing after Eleanor's death. Like, did he continue wearing one or not? Because
we have to go back and look. I don't remember.
Yeah, because I don't remember right off the top of my head. But either way, like him putting his hand on Naomi to kind of like say, like, we're in this together. This is kind of announcing our engagement without announcing our engagement. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's just,
yeah.
She kind of looks at his hand and probably thinks like, what the fuck have I done? What have I gotten myself into? And that's gonna be a wild ride for Naomi. Let's just be real.
I mean, well, also I kind of took it as him, playing a little bit of a power game with her, because you're right, she did like, I'm not moving out of this chair. And you're right, it was very much the head of the room. That's like the center where eyes are naturally going to look.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not leaving. So he's like, okay, then I'll just do this then. Like, kind of like I can play the game too. Like, that's how I took it. But, it's going to be so interesting.
It will be, considering too, as I previously mentioned, Lawrence ordered the execution of Warren Putnam.
Yeah, and he was right there
in front of Naomi, right? Mm-hmm. And when Lawrence said to her about she should be rewarded for having dealt with him, And she's just kind of like rewarded. Like, that is probably like the lowest thing that you could have said to me. Like, regardless of, okay, I'm talking from Naomi's perspective. Regardless of Warren's flaws, bad choices, just bad human being altogether, she obviously loved the man. I mean, that was her husband. You know, no different than
they were
Serena
married
with Fred.
before Gilead too. So
Right.
like,
So it's quite insulting, you know,
it is.
to
There's
to have
history
a
there.
yeah, to have a man who awkwardly proposes and says, "Oh yeah, you're basically better without him," and it's like, do you really get to make that decision though? Really?
He's a man in Gilead. Of course he gets
Well,
to see.
well, he's the architect, so why not?
Yeah, he gets to do whatever the fuck he wants.
I
Really.
guess so. But who doesn't get to do whatever the fuck she wants is Serena. You set me up for these good transitions. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Let's talk about Serena.
I honestly, I expected a little bit more focus on her this episode than what we got. I mean, we still got a pretty good chunk, but I was kind of expecting a little bit more. I don't know about you, but I was personally expecting a little bit more.
Well, talk about, you know, how we see her in this episode, like, you know, when we first pick up on her story.
Yeah, we see that Wheeler.
I get silly sometimes.
For those not watching the live, Brittany put in the show notes of Wheeler for Serena.
Because I don't remember his name. Is it Ryan? I don't know his name. I'm just gonna call her of Wheeler.
Yeah, let's just do that. I think it is Ryan, but I don't know. Google it real quick.
Go ahead. Walk us through Serena.
Yeah, so Serena, we get to see Serena basically taking on the advice that June gave her in the previous episode, because she was like, they treat me like a handmaid, and they're allowing me, quote unquote, allowing her to go back to their house and stay in a room there. She's not living there, like, she doesn't have free reign. It's very clear that she is taking the position of a handmaid. Yes. And when she arrived last episode, they made it very clear all the motherly duties will be taken care of by Mrs. Wheeler, not Serena. Serena is just there for the feeding. That's it. So she is a handmaid at this point. And she did ask June's opinion of what she should do, and she's trying to make her best efforts to do it. Was pretend to be a handmaid, do all the active duties of being a handmaid, and act like it while planning your revenge. So she, honestly, it was a weak attempt, Serena. Come on. Like, you didn't even last a week.
She's got to learn how to play the game. Okay, she's been following the rules for so long. She's not the rebel, like the real rebel, like June is. Like, she needs to channel her inner of Fred. It's actually of Ryan, so it is Ryan Wheeler. So we're gonna call her of Ryan whenever she decides to channel that.
But yeah, so they get they're posing for photos to promote for the Gilead's new fertility center in Canada. Mm-hmm. Again, still messed up that they're there. Just go to Gilead. But Serena, they're opening up the center again, and Serena asks Mrs. Wheeler if she can go with Noah, like saying, hey, it was my idea in the first place. I was the one who organized all of this. This was like my project from the get-go, and
wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me.
Yeah, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. And that she was like, hey, this was my idea, my project. This is why Gilead sent me here. And also, like, it would be good for me and Noah to be there to show this is what the fertility center can do. Right. And Mrs. Wheeler's like, fuck no. I'm not surprised. No one was surprised. Serena was the only one who could possibly be surprised by this.
Yeah.
And Serena said, and she starts like kind of going off of it about saying like, hey, you need to stop like breastfeeding him, and it needs to be from the bottle. Like you need to wean him. Like basically just kind of get the fuck out of my house. Like I want you gone, and I want to take your baby. So
yeah, Serena's getting a taste of her own medicine. Literally.
Very
it's
much
fabulous.
so.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, and so when Serena tries to plead her case, you know, just like all the other handmaids in Gilead, he needs to be held. He needs that connection. He needs, like, it'll just be confusing for him.
He needs his mom.
Yeah, like, and it would just be confusing for him. And Mrs. Wheeler is just like, oh, he's a smart boy. He'll figure it out. Like, he won't be confused.
Well, she says, my smart boy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're doing that now? Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Ooh. That went down the wrong throat. Yeah, so she starts to, like, you know, actually start, like, because Miss Wheeler made her kind of force her, like, hey, you need to start pumping the milk, and we're not doing it. You got to be ready for it. Like, this is what's happening now.
Yep.
So, and later that night, in the dead of night, Mrs. Wheeler later says, Serena goes to, or off Ryan, goes to, down to Mr. Wheeler Ryan's office to butter him up. And he even says directly, like, after a couple of comments from her, he's like, I'm sufficiently buttered up. Like, what do you want?
Can we start from that first interaction, though, when she knocks on the door, is allowed in, and she's like, oh, I just thought I could speak with you for a moment. He goes, are you going to shoot me? I was like, no fucks are given. He's not holding back. I appreciate this guy, actually.
I do. Like, I was not mad about it. I was just kind of like, all right, this dude. And there's a moment, like, later on at the center that I will talk about, that we'll get. I'll mention it when we get there. But yeah, I'm kind of down for this guy. Like, I'm like, all right, okay. I'm intrigued.
He can hold his
Obviously, we don't know enough about you yet, but I'm intrigued. I'm watching you. That cracked me up. Are you gonna shoot me?
Just the snarky comments, the sarcasm behind everything he was saying, and like,
yeah, and he was having none of her shit. He knew what he was doing.
This was complete opposite of what June did with Fred. You know, June knew Fred was interested and
corrupt.
Like,
he was going to break those rules anyway.
And Ryan is just like, nah, bruh. Like, I'm okay. I'm good. Like,
why are you here? Get out of my house.
Shit.
Yeah, and
but she makes her plea, right?
Yes, but I do think, like, Serena is taking June's advice too literally. She's very, very much like, she's trying to play the game like how June did. She's not taking in her own unique situation into account. The Wheelers are not like how the Waterfords were. Naomi has a lot of similarities with Serena, well, how Serena was, but they are not the same women. And obviously, Ryan and Fred are completely different men. So, yeah, you're right. Like, Fred was clearly interested, and June knew that, so she could play that card. Ryan don't give a fuck. So
Ryan don't give no fucks.
No, he doesn't. So
he said, "Fuck around and find out."
Yes. So I feel like she's trying to play the game, but she's not taking into account all those factors. But she pleads her case that she thinks that they should go to the reopening of the center, and he says he will consider it. And the next morning, or I assume it's the next morning because it was the next day, I believe, if I'm remembering right. She does get allowed to go, and Serena puts no in the car. And when she turns around, Mrs. Wheeler's there with a smack in the face.
Not once, but twice.
I wasn't expecting the second one, but
oof. Oof.
Didn't look like she held back either. And talk about slapping some sense into Serena.
Oh my God. And with the wife, Lady, I'm gonna call her Lady Wheeler because I don't remember her first name either. With her saying, who do you think you are? Serena replies with, I'm Mrs. Frederick Waterford. And I'm like, God, Serena.
I feel like maybe the slap just sent her back to default. I don't know.
Probably. Let's just be real.
That. Yeah.
It's curious too, because again, we're seeing history repeat itself with Serena trying to be like June to get to Fred. Fred doesn't obviously work out for Serena. She doesn't have that charm or that grit about her, and the fact that Mrs. Wheeler basically says, stay away from my husband, and who do you think you are? And she gets her answer. She goes, well, to me, you're just a whore. And I'm like, based on what? Like, how is she a whore?
Yeah,
like,
she was with her husband.
She didn't sleep with your husband or anything like that. Like, what the fuck? Like, I need you to take a seat.
Handmaids are considered whores. So.
That's true. It's like, I just need you to take a seat back, okay?
Yeah.
But all in all,
Mrs. Wheeler's name is Alanis. Or Alanis.
Alanis.
Alanis Wheeler.
Alanis, yeah. Okay.
That doesn't roll off the tongue as easy.
Fuck Alanis. But now bonus for Serena, she's going to be joined by Mrs. Wheeler to the opening of the center. Yay! Girls' night out.
Why? Serena, you're goofing up, babe. What do you think's gonna happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
And she does get I feel like she was actually handling things well and doing a really good job, talking about, hey, this is what, obviously we're against Gilead, but she was doing very good for what she was trying to do.
That's fair.
Like, hey, this is what Gilead did and what it's done that has helped me, who I previously couldn't have children and now I can, obviously. They were trying to do that, and we get her interrupted by Alanis Wheeler, whatever. And she is insistent that they go home.
Right.
Bye, bitch. I want you gone.
Bye. Yeah.
Yeah. And
she clearly didn't want her there in the first place. Her excuse was, to expose Noah and you must be tired.
Yeah.
And
she just wants her gone. And strategically, Serena didn't pack a bottle, and she's like, well, I do need to feed him before we go. And you can see that Lady Wheeler is pissed. You didn't pack a bottle. I told you we were going.
But she's saying it through a gritted smile. I told you to prepare.
Yeah, and
the poor, what I assume is a Martha.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know her name, but I love her. She's a sweet person.
The glimpse that we got in her this episode, love her.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because she's been so kind to Serena. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is she the same one who, when she got there, said to the house saying he's been waiting for you?
Yes.
God, that's cute.
Love she's obviously a very kind person, as we as kind as kind can go in this household. But with Mrs. Wheeler chiding Serena about the bottle, this Martha kind of takes the blame upon herself, saying, it was my fault. I should have prepared. I should have known better. And end of story. But because Serena, I still say strategically, she strategically did not bring a bottle because she knew she was going to have an opportunity to make a move. And so when she and the Martha go to a quiet room so that she can breastfeed Noah, Serena asks for some privacy, which the Martha, obliges to.
And I think she knew.
Oh, I think she knew too.
100%.
Without a doubt.
There's an exit door right behind her. Yeah, it's not hard to figure it out.
Right. And so Serena takes her opportunity. She holds on to Noah a little bit tighter, makes a run for it out of the exit doors, which if anyone has ever used an exit door, it will sound an alarm
Yeah.
that
I
it's
expected
going
it to be louder.
to
I mean, it was still
yeah,
loud, but I expected it to be a little bit louder.
I did too, but I think for what it was, it worked because then
Mhm.
there's a lot of commotion, going out in the street with Serena trying to flag down a driver to
Mhm.
take them away. And when she finally steps into the road, I got severely nervous
Oh,
about
me
this
too.
part, of
I was
course.
like, "What the fuck, Serena?"
Yeah, because 2 cars have passed by this point.
Mhm. Third time's a
Ign
charm.
Third time's a charm, and it just so happens to be a woman who is behind the steering wheel, and Serena steps out in front of this car, but then quickly, like, turns her back to the car so that at least the baby wouldn't be hit should she get hit.
Yeah.
But she turns to the driver and says, please help me save my baby.
Mhm.
And the driver's like, she's confused, but she's like, okay,
Yeah,
get
get
in.
in. Yeah.
And so Serena does. She gets into the back seat with Noah. It looks like maybe she kind of like ducks for cover as well. Noah's of
Yeah, I thought
course
that too. Yeah.
crying at this point. Poor baby. Good thing he's too young to remember any of this. But yeah, Serena and Noah are whisked away by this unknown, hopefully good Samaritan with the
Hopefully.
alarms blaring in the background.
And
So
I mean, honestly, I was kind of like, I know that that is the natural reaction to turn your back from the car from
yeah,
hitting the kid, but my thought that was like, what if you did get hit? That's just gonna put like, even if it was just like a little bump, it's gonna push you, and then you're gonna face plant on the baby. Like,
maybe, but
yeah, I don't know, but
it
my
didn't
brain. That's
happen.
of
It
course
didn't
it didn't,
happen,
but
so
that's
it's
what.
good. So yeah.
But there was a moment with Ryan Wheeler and his wife earlier that like there was a second like during the when she was like you said she was like talking through her smile like why
Mhm.
didn't you
Yeah.
do this, he
Yeah.
like glances at her like what the fuck, like there's a
He's
split
like, "Who did I
second.
marry?"
Yeah, and that's what the moment that I was like saying earlier like that I wanted to touch on because that face to me I'm like I'm watching you dude now, like I'm so intrigued because you have to know your wife's batshit because
Oh, yeah.
his face was just like kind of amused, but also like, what the fuck? Like it was
Exactly.
just
Well, and then he's trying to, smooth over things with his wife, obviously, by saying, "Yes, you need to go," and then he's also trying to appease Serena at the same time because I think he realizes what's the word I'm looking for? Just the tension between these 2 women and, trying to smooth things over and just kind of play like good cop, if you will. And he's looking at his wife like, "Yes, I agree, she needs to go." And then Serena's like, "Well, I need to breastfeed and whatever." And the wife is saying something about make it fast. And Ryan goes,
like
"Well,
that's up to that's up
he's
to
like,
Noah.
"What? I think that's up to Noah." And he kind of smiles about it because I mean he's right. And then
He
he looks at his
is.
wife. He looks at his wife with a smile. Then it's like, hmm, just it just fades. It's
I'm
gone.
yeah, I'm so interested in it, and it's oh my gosh, it's so hard to be a Gilead commander. You have to
No,
deal with with 2 crazy women. I mean,
no.
it's
Let
so
me play
hard.
you a song on the world's smallest violin. Anyway,
Like that was what I thought. Like I'm like, dude.
yeah, it's pretty
But his face,
terrible.
that it was the face of just what the fuck is going on here that
Yeah,
I had to.
yeah,
I'm intrigued. I am. I'm gonna be watching it.
yeah. I kind of feel that this is actually how the episode should have ended. I mean, it was very moving, of course, with the memorial to the fallen soldiers and gunfires and
Yeah.
June protecting the child, because that's kind of always been her MO as a mother, of
Mhm.
course. But I still think it would have been an extremely strong ending to if it ended with Serena being, whisked away with Noah and
Yes.
trying to escape the Wheelers. Who knows what's in store for her? And I say that because when we look ahead to the finale episode, there was nothing to tell us about Serena and Noah. It solely focused on June,
Mhm.
Lawrence, and Nick, because damn. Damn. I'm very concerned about, once again, Nick's involvement with Lawrence. Now that Lawrence knows the truth about Eleanor and June's hand in it, but not real, like she didn't actually like kill Eleanor. She kind of just like let it happen.
Yeah.
But
Eleanor didn't die by her fucking hand, but she
nice
died. Thank you. But she did
she didn't
have eyes
stop
on
it.
She saw
She
it,
didn't call for help. Yeah. So now knowing,
willful, like it's not willful, it's I guess willful ignorance. No, that's not willful inaction. Ha.
There you go. Willful inaction. That's good. Yeah. So now knowing that with Lawrence, obviously June is done with Lawrence. Lawrence may be entertaining the idea of actually going after June per Commander Mackenzie and per his own personal vendetta, I'd imagine. So him saying that June needs to be dealt with is like a big shift from Lawrence trying to extend the olive branch, New Bethlehem. You can see Hannah, you can be with her. I mean, all bets are off the table, I'm sure, at this point. And with Nick knowing the inner workings of the commanders and obviously his feelings towards June, he tries to say she's not a target. Like, we shouldn't focus on her. Yeah. But then there's this one scene where it looks like Nick not only meets with Mark Tuello, like at the bridge, the border of Gilead and in Canada, and he's telling Mark that Gilead's basically never going to stop until they get June. But there's a different scene. It cuts away, but there's a different scene where it looks like either Nick is running towards someone, or maybe he's being dragged back. And it's like,
to me, it looked like he was like rushing at somebody and they caught him. Like he's just like going at it and they stopped him.
And it's like, but who is he rushing towards? Is he rushing towards Mark, Lawrence, June? It's because we see her being followed by a truck, assumingly in Canada. So it's like what we talked about earlier. Is it Canadian protesters? Is it Canadian sympathizers? Or I'm sorry, Gilead sympathizers? Is it Gilead itself? Because then you'll see her with like the oxygen tube thing in her nostrils. And she's like screaming.
Yeah, obviously in pain. Like I am stressed.
And I know.
I had to rewatch like the teaser, but it looked like Nick was in a house, and I can't tell if it's Lawrence's house, but it looks like it didn't look. So I want to lean towards Lawrence, but that's what I want to lean towards, or maybe it's Mackenzie. Who knows? Like, because like we already know that.
Well, Mackenzies live in Colorado.
Yeah, but they were there last episode.
True, but maybe they stopped at Nick's house. Because Nick's house is like white in the inside. It's kind of airy. It's kind of, it's bright. Lawrence's is usually pretty dark. And to me, it looked like it was kind of a white sort of background. So maybe it's at his own house, or maybe it's somewhere else. Maybe it's Commander Center. I don't know. It could be numerous possibilities. But either way, it heavily focuses, like I said, on June, on Nick, and on Lawrence. We don't know anything about Serena. However, we also get to see Janine again.
I know. I was so excited to see her again because
I'm so stressed out for her though.
That little clip of, we obviously figure out what Naomi decided, but that like little flash of Lawrence, Naomi, and Naomi looks like it's a very soft green. It looks like to me, like the wedding dress. Like it didn't look entirely pure white. It looked a little. It might have been the lighting. I don't know.
I'd have to go back and watch.
Yeah, and we saw Janine there too. So she's gonna have to be a handmaid again.
And she's, arguing that with assumingly Aunt Lydia. She said, I don't want to be posted. You said I wouldn't be posted. And Lydia says, well, you can't be here at the Red Center indefinitely. And so, yeah, you're right. We see Janine in the background. She's kind of like cowering, uncomfortable. I mean, it's a catch-22 for her. If she's a handmaid again, obviously that means that she has to potentially perform ceremonies. Now, Lawrence, as we know, never really did do the ceremonies up until he had June, and he was forced to perform the ceremony. Having Naomi as a wife, we don't know what that could mean for him and for the two of them. But, silver lining for Janine is she's going to be around her daughter.
Yeah, that is a silver lining. And what I also was considering is, does Janine know that Emily and June both got out through Lawrence? Like, do they know that? Does she know that? Because this, I'm probably being way, way, way too hopeful for this very dark show. But part of me is like, maybe this is her way out. But I doubt it.
I don't know. I feel like maybe she did know about Emily, but I think she knew that June was able to do Angel's Flight with the help of Lawrence, because Janine was also there to help escort the kids.
Yes.
So, I mean, she knows that much.
I mean, well, that, and then also we know that he doesn't perform the ceremony. Well, we know that, but
but with Naomi there,
that's a risk.
It's a huge risk.
It's a risk for Lawrence.
Everybody.
It's so stressful. This is so stressful, and I mean,
I'm ready for it though. I'm ready.
I'm so
ready for
interested.
this finale.
And I mean, I'm glad that she gets to be near Angela Charlotte, but what cost? And now all these three very interesting characters are going to be living together.
Yeah. Oh, I wonder if it's going to be like June 2.0, or if he Lawrence is going to really mold Janine into his own image. Not literal, but like you understand what I'm trying to say, to make
groom her not sexually.
Yeah, well, one can hope, but make her into like a true Gilead believer or citizen, if you will.
I don't know, but
not have a repeat.
I also have a consideration of, do we think that Lydia, even though they proved that he does participate in the ceremony, do you think she still doesn't believe it? And she's like, hey, if you have to be reposted again, I'm going to post you here. Because
unless it was by request.
Unless it was by request. I'm thinking of, from Lydia's point of view, unless it was by request, that she's the one who assigns them. So like,
also, what happened to Esther?
I don't know, and I'm concerned. But I assume she's still being held until she has the baby.
It's Putnam's baby, though.
Gross.
Yeah, what's going to happen then?
I don't know. Does that still go to Naomi?
So many unknowns.
Who knows? But like, I'm considering that maybe Lydia, if she's the one assigning for it, and if it wasn't by request, if she's like, hey, we have seen 2 rebellious handmaids escape while they were under the I guess, care of this man. So maybe this is Lydia's way of kind of pushing Janine to be like, hey, this is a ticket out of here. Maybe. Again, probably wishful thinking for this universe, but hey, I considered it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Either way, this episode was incredible. It didn't rank as high on IMDb as I would have liked, but like, it's cool, it's fine, it's no big deal. I'm ready for that finale. Cannot wait for it. So excited. I think it's going to be phenomenal, and I hope also we get to see what happens with Serena and how like she escaped, if she stays gone from the Wheelers, or oh boy, what's going to happen. So
hopefully,
yes. That concludes today's episode on season 5, the penultimate episode of The Handmaid's Tale. We want to thank everyone who joined us for our live stream. We really appreciate you being here. Shout out to McDorks. We love you. Appreciate you being here. Even though you haven't watched the show, still love your support as always. Love. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel in case you already haven't done so. We are on the road to 200 subscribers. Last I checked, we're at 138. It's amazing. Let's keep increasing that number. Also, don't forget to like this video. That way it helps out our channel, the algorithm. Other people can check out the Watchers in the Basement. But we also want y'all to check out Amber's YouTube channel. Amber, tell them about OllivAmber's Wands.
OllivAmber's Wands is a study of wands and wand lore in the wizarding world of Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts. So I do a historic, cultural, and symbolic meaning of the woods and the magical beasts that the cores come from for wands from characters in the show. And we analyze them and do a character analysis basically of the wand and compare that to its owner and see how that fits. And it's very intriguing and very fun to look at, and a lot of it's speculation, of course, but still very, very fun. And there's a lot of symbolism that's hidden in there, and it's very fun.
For sure. And as someone who doesn't know anything about wands, I've learned a lot from Amber. She's got a great channel. Y'all go show her some love. Her information is in the description box down below.
I actually am very close to 200 subscribers. I have we have 175 right now.
Congrats. That's amazing.
I'm very excited. I really hope that we can get to it.
Y'all go show Amber some love. Like I said, her information is in the description box down below. Also, don't forget to follow her on Instagram. And speaking of social media, follow Watchers in the Basement on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Simply search at Watchers Basement. Also, use the hashtag Watchers Basement when you want to tag us in articles, memes, talk about the show. If there's something that you want us to review, we would be more than happy to do so. We just concluded House of the Dragon, so be sure to go check that out. Also, you can catch up on all of Handmaid's Tale here through a playlist, and we've got more shows coming up. Monday, Justin and I will be reviewing Netflix Enola Holmes. Frank, George, and Tristan will be reviewing Yellowstone once it premieres. And for those of you who have checked out Gangs of London, which is on AMC, we're also going to come back to talk season 2. Amber, are you going to watch Enola Holmes?
Yes, I grew up with my dad reading me Sherlock Holmes books, so I like any and all adaptions. I love it.
Listen,
so Enola, I loved Enola.
I did too. If you watch it over the weekend and you're free, join us on Monday with Justin and myself. That way we can talk about it.
If you guys, is it starting at the same time that you guys were doing the House of the Dragon ones?
Possibly. Well, we'll talk offline about that.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah. So once again, use hashtag Watchers Basement to tweet at us, tag us in things. We love all things, especially memes. But you can also follow our audio podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Thanks to Anchor.fm. Give us a 5-star rating. Would really help us out with our channel. And thanks again, everyone who has joined us for today's episode. Amber and I will be, if I can spit this out, Amber and I will be back next week to discuss the finale of The Handmaid's Tale. Amber, the honor is all yours.
Thank you. See you guys next week, and buy her fucking hand. Have a good day.
Buy her fucking hand.